Went to the top of the road to turn around and drop the bike. What a numpty. Look at that. M&S in Bingley, which is a BP affiliate. E5 Premium. Now at £1.98 a litre. What's that? Something like £11 a gallon. £11 per gallon. $15 a gallon. Fuel. I was half full on this 20 litre tank. I've topped it up and it's cost me 22 quid. It can't go on, can it? I just don't know how folk can afford to get to work. And particularly all these people, these good, decent, hard-working, critical members of working society. I'm talking about NHS workers, nurses, paramedics, ambulance staff. They're not on, I would imagine, you know, even paramedics I think are just on average wage, you know, not a fire at all in terms of salary. Social care workers, particularly those that have to go from house to house, I just don't know how they can sustain their day-to-day work. So it's time for this. No, I'm not going to get dragged into a. I don't want the channel to become politically coloured. I'll just say, I'll tell you, I know what I think of our leader, shall we say. Anyway, so any road up. Oh yeah, hey up, almost forgot, hey up, welcome to the channel, welcome back to the channel if you've been before. Please click a like, please click a subscribe, makes a massive difference to me, the way the YouTube algorithms work. Actually has a significant impact upon your ability to grow a channel. A significant impact. All very clever stuff, and I don't pretend to understand it in any great detail, but suffice to say, the more likes and subscriptions that I get, the more I'm likely to get. So please do if you can. Doesn't cost you a penny. Right, so here we are in Silsden. Hey, what's going on there? Football tournament. Right. So this here issue. So where are we now? Saturday. So we're out. We're out for a quick ride on. I think it was Wednesday. Anyway, I was just going for a bit of splosh at the Route 59 cafe, and I'd just got sat outside of Addingham near Ilkley, and comes up on the dash here on the TFT a red warning, MTC failure. So I thought, chuffing hell, I'm just over 2,000 mile and electrical gremlins have started already. So anyway, so I pitched up at Route 59, got a bit of splosh. Bearing in mind the bike was going fine, the engine light wasn't on, it wasn't in limp mode or anything like that, it was riding fine. So I just thought, well, drop a line to one of the KTM forums saying, you know, anybody experienced this with a bike so new, and what do you think it might be, etc, etc. And there were one or two of these sort of fairly predictable replies about yeah, it's the traction control failure, sensor might have failed, turn it off, leave it 5 minutes, see if it resets itself, etc, etc. But one fella, bless him, says just check the rear ABS stroke traction control sensor lead that runs along the right hand side of the swing arm, and make sure it hasn't moved out of position and been rubbing against the back tyre. He said, because that's what happened to me. So I thought, well, that's a bit unlikely, because I've not had this bike out in weather yet, so it's never had a wash or anything, so I'm certain I haven't knocked anything out of place. But I thought I'll have a look anyway when I get home. So I got home, warnings were still on, etc, etc. Bike's still running fine. Went through the warning messages, and it said not only traction control failure but ABS failure. So I had a look at the rear sensor lead, and you know what, sure enough, it was chewed through about 3/4 of the way through, with the internal wires showing. Now this bike, unusually for the non R890, came fitted with Metzler Karoo 3s, which are more of an off-roady tyre, they're a little bit knobbly. And sure enough, that lead had been chaffing against the rear tyre. From when I'm not sure, but I can only assume from fairly close to the point after I bought the bike. Because all the clips were in place, you know, it were clipped firmly in place, was the lead. But somehow it had bowled at the end and had chafed against the rear tyre. So obviously once it went through that cable, there's no signal from the sensor to the ECU, and so the bike is telling you that there's no traction control and no ABS, which is absolutely true, there wasn't. And also what it does, it disables your ability to alter the throttle settings, you know, from road terrain to off-road. You can't do any of that if that sensor is disabled at the rear wheel, which is understandable. So anyway, so I thought, well, God, nearest KTM dealer's 30 miles away. The KTM dealer I bought it from's 50 miles away, cannot be arsed. But I thought, well, it's a lead, it must be repairable, this lead. So I thought I'll have a go. So I just cut through where it had worn through, snipped through there, peeled back the outer coating, and you have two wires inside, a black one and a white one. So I just snipped out the brake, spliced them both back together, the black to the black, the white to the white, put heat shrink on each of them, and then a larger piece of heat shrink over the entire thing to keep it completely secure. And sure as sure, turn the ignition on, everything back to normal. But one interesting point that somebody pointed out again on the forum was that the system, the whole of the system of communication between the sensor and that sensor lead and the bike is very, very sensitive to resistance. So what you shouldn't do, and what I didn't do, albeit for different reasons, was to fit connectors so that you've got a different sort of conductive material between the brake and the wires. I just twisted them together, really, really firmly twisted them together for a good bit of length, doubled it back, and then tight heat shrink over that to hold it firmly in place. And of course what you haven't got then is any change in the conductivity of the material across the brake, and that's been fine. I mean, I was going to solder it, and then somebody had also said on the forum, well, even if you solder it, sometimes that can affect the resistance or the conductivity. So I'm glad, albeit for reasons completely unconnected with that advice, that I didn't solder it, and I didn't put like metal connectors in. So touch wood, we seem to be alright. But it would have been an interesting warranty claim, wouldn't it? Because there's no way I've moved that lead. So it was obviously badly positioned in the first place. And bearing in mind the bike should have had a thorough PDI, and bearing in mind it's been back to the originating dealer for its first service. And this has not been spotted, which is a bit disappointing. But I will give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe, you never know if somebody's tampered with the bike when, you know, but I can't imagine that that's the case, because I don't leave it unattended anywhere. But anyway, sorted. But for that sort of thing, these here forums, these bike specific forums and Facebook pages, worth the weight in gold. You know, because I don't think I would have thought to check that. I would have just assumed automatically that either there was an electrical failure in a component, or that there was some software issue or something of that nature. And of course the bike's only 3 months old. I'd have just gone, you know, I'd have gone back to a KTM dealership and said, fix it. And no, I just wonder if they'd have said, sorry mate, we can't fix it under you need a new, because they wouldn't have been splicing wires back together, would they? They'd have been putting a new sensor and a new lead in completely. Fine if it's under warranty, but the cynical side of me says, the cynical side of me tends to think that they would have said, well, you've obviously knocked the lead, you know, it's not a component failure, you know, the sensor amp packed in, there isn't an issue with the ECU, etc, etc, etc. It's a pseudo mechanical issue that's been brought about by a lack of maintenance. Now, if you want to hold to the belief that your routine bike checks that we should all do, brakes, tyre pressures and the rest of it, should have flagged up that chaffing issue before it got through to the core of the wiring. I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in them comments below whether I'm being an unreasonable old bugger and that's something I should have found, seen and rectified at an early stage, or whether it's reasonable to expect, had I gone down the warranty repair route, to have that warranty issue honoured. Interesting one. Tell you what does my head in on this double white line system here. When you get cyclists two abreast. I know I've banged on about that before, but on here it's particularly bad because it's a 50 then internationals and it's double white lines just about all of the way, and even when it gets broken here you're well on to get past. But I'm a grumpy old bastard, so maybe again that's a little bit unreasonable. It just pisses me off. When you get to my time of life, let you into a secret, in 2 months' time I'm 60. When you get to my time of life, you know, if I come out with something that sounds a little bit bigoted or unreasonable or curmudgeonly, I don't do that self-analysis bit like I used to have to do, particularly when I were working. When I were a copper, you come out with something like a little bit edgy and you're expected to do a bit of self-analysis. I don't bother anymore. Can't be arsed. Route 59 Cafe for a pot of steam, after which we will resume. Go on, lad. Oh, look at those leaden skies. BBC weather app, what a load of bollocks. Bet that thing's not right outside of London. Don't matter if us pros up here get caught out, does it? Us codheads up to north. It's a wee bit busy. What's that there? That looks nice. Is that Varadero? I'm gonna have a look at that. Alright, speak to you in a bit. I don't know if you can see, we're over the tops really, between a little place called Thrush Cross and Pateley Bridge, Dyke Lane, and over yonder that's RAF Menwith Hill, where you can see the golf balls there. That's an American Air Force base, between Otley and Harrogate. It's pretty windy today, and back there just after the turn off at the Stonehouse Inn at Thrust Cross, I pulled in to do a a ride-by shot. So I set the camera up, corner of the road, sorry, a bend in the road, and rode out at the bottom, turned round, came back, took the bend, then came back, took the bend the other way to get the rear facing shot. I thought I'll just do one more, went to the top again, turned round, dropped the bike. Oh, but barely a mark. And as I've always said, first thing I've always put on a bike when I bought it, before I've done anything with it, is crash bars. Worst one I ever dropped was a BMW K1600 GTL. Before I had crash bars put on it, that's when I learnt the lesson. Because before I had crash bars put on it, I dropped it at 0 miles per hour, like you do, and it cost me £2,500 in repairs because of the plastics and the exhaust. The second time I dropped it, I had crash bars on and there wasn't a mark on it. So it just goes to show, folks. Also add, which goes back to 3 or 4 videos back when we were talking about folk who keep the boxes on the bike all the time. I'm glad I have on this occasion. I mean, and I needed them anyway for the camera gear. Let me tell you, I think there could have been some damage to the rear of the bike if I hadn't had the panniers on. Anyway, look at that, eh? Coming down into Paisley Bridge, takes us into a little village, does this road called Glass Houses. Quaint little place. Yeah, what I found there with that drop, gosh, you're actually effectively turning into a gradient because it was uphill. So once you get to the 90-degree position, you're unbalanced. Now a talented rider, which I'm not, would have got out of that, but I just went to full lock, absolute full lock, the handlebars stopped, and that were it. Anyway, imagine if I'd have done something like that with something like a BMW R1200 RT or another K1600 without any crash bars on. You'd have done panniers, you'd have done one of the panniers without a doubt, hugely. Because they're not reinforced like these Touratech ones, you know. You'll have done something with the you know, on an R series BMW, you'd have probably taken the cylinder head if you didn't have some protection on, and certainly probably some of the plastics. To cap it all, you might struggle to get the bloody thing back up. go, glass houses. Yeah, so last week, Jubilee weekend, don't get me started on that, I'm not interested, didn't watch any of it. Sorry and all that. But the Sunday, we're due to go for a ride out with some other YouTubers. My mate VFR Mitch Gaza, drop into his channel, VFR Mitch. He'd sorted us out a ride out from Yonderman's Cafe in Derbyshire with Crazy Legs on a bike, Moist Decoy, and I think it was Cart's Wheel or something similar. And then the weather forecast just went to rat shit. It went from being dry and sunny to the following day suddenly all forecast changed to pissing rain and high winds and risk of thunderstorms. So the collective wisdom was to literally take a rain check on that. But any road up, I'm sure we'll do it again. Anyway, go have a look at VFR Mitch's latest latest video, because he did go out on that Sunday. All credit to him, on a ride out to Kettlewell. So that's a good video, have a look at that on his cross tourer VFR 1200X, cracking bike. But I have to say again, if that had been my cross tourer that I had a couple of years ago, and I'd have done that back there, because they are a massively heavy bike, touching 300 kilos, and very, very top heavy. So I think on an uphill gradient, which of course makes things twice as bad, pushing the bike back upright on a gradient when you're at right angles to that gradient, I'm fairly sure I wouldn't have achieved it on the old VFR 1200X. Brilliant bike though. So this is glass houses. Right. Pateley Bridge. Dog in a butcher's shop. There's another butcher's down here and all. I might just treat myself to some sausages. This one here, look. Oh, there's yon fellow with that yellow GSA here again. Well, that was a spot of lunch in Pateley Bridge. Remains of last night's beef stroganoff, very nice. We're just gonna... Well, that's a right outing, isn't it? Look at that. Kawasaki Z1000 SX, used to have one of those. So anyway, back home before the promised rain visits itself upon us. So thanks for watching again. See you on the next one. Until then, ride safe and be kind. Bye.